This one's going to be tough. I have debated hitting record on this video since late last night. Normally, I would process this stuff that's happening in real time internally. And I feel like, given the purpose of this channel is to leave a record and a life guide for my son, that it's really important for me to set a precedence that I don't just have everything figured out. I'm still dealing with a lot and processing a lot even now. And I think that'll continue. Dad, there is a great deal that's unsaid between the two of us. My hope is that if you can hear this, these are some of the things that I wish I could say. Circumstances played against us from almost the very beginning. I know this. I have several early memories of my childhood, and one of them in particular stands out to me, and I think defines the distance that was created right out of the gate. I remember wandering down the hallway in our house. I'm looking for Mom, and I'm opening the door of your bedroom. What I don't know at the time is now her bedroom. What I see is my mom in overalls, and she's got splatters of kind of white paint all over them. She's got a paint roller, and she's got a bucket of paint there that she's rolling. She's painting the wall right in front of the door. As I open the door, I notice pretty urgently the emotion that's on her face. She's upset. She's crying. And I've never seen this before to my recollection. You know, my mom's been a very strong and upbeat and go get it type of person. So it was really shocking to see this on my mom and coming from nowhere, you know, and it stands out really sharply in my memory. And I remember my mom really quickly trying to repack all of the things that she was unpacking, you know, in that room while she was painting that wall. And I recall her rushing over to me and trying to put on a happy face, you know, and she grabs my shoulders and she says, "I'm going to need you to be the man of the house from now on." And I don't have a clue what she means, but I can really feel the emotion that's just sort of like bubbling over for her, you know, and she pulls me in and she hugs me probably as tight as I've ever been hugged, you know, and she's releasing a lot there. And I say, of course, you know, I mean, my 4 years old, I'm just nodding, right? That memory has been there for so long. It really has, I think, established kind of the way I see myself, the role that I have in families and households as a support structure, as a stabilizer, as a tent pole, as a, you know, an ox, a non-breaking entity. A few weeks ago, I actually called you on the phone when I'd learned that you were in ICU. I was scared, you know, and I wanted to talk to you. We had a conversation that sort of reinforced and refreshed my memory on all the things that we dealt with in our relationship as I was a young boy becoming a teenager. You answer the phone and very urgently you say, "Son, this may be the last conversation that we ever have. The doctors aren't giving me good news." And I let that sit a little bit, you know, between us, and I say, "Do you really believe that?" I can hear the urgency and the concern and the fear in your voice, you know. I don't hear that often. I haven't heard that often in our relationship. And I find myself really desperately trying to find a way to catch up for lost time, a way to kind of bridge the divide that's there. And historically, you would be the one with all of the words, all of the pointed opinions, and I would be the one who would receive what needed to be received by you. And so in this moment, I choose to allow you the opportunity to continue exploring your thoughts on all this. You tell me a lot of specifics about what's going on with you physically and what the doctors are saying. You say you're having trouble breathing. You have COPD, and that makes total sense. And I've actually just gotten over a really keen stretch of COVID, the first time I'd ever gotten that. So I had really, really bad bronchitis the week before. And I really find myself sympathizing in the helplessness that you feel when you can't catch your breath. It is absolutely frightening. So I try not to take it too personally when you are making comments about the fragile nature that I have. In your opinion, the what I would consider gentleness, you would consider fragile. You tell me how well my sisters are doing in fighting the establishment and pushing on the doctors for information and really being an advocate for you. And I find myself really admiring my sisters and their empathy. And when you say, I need to be more like them, that I'm too soft, that the world is going to walk all over me, I try not to resort back to that child that I was, sort of cowering in your presence. See, we only got to see you every other weekend as we were growing up, and you lived in a different town than where we went to school and where we were making friends, and all the inroads in culture and economy that we built as kids, we could not take with us. Even as we were packing our suitcase, we could only take essentials. We couldn't take a lot of who we were with us to see you. And I know you and Mom never had nice things to say about each other. There was not an amicable dissolution of that relationship. And being kids, we were leverage. And I very much felt that throughout the course of my life. I heard a lot from you about the mistakes that my mom had made and how the whole family was sort of angled against you. I heard a lot about how I would make mistakes and they would be a reflection of my mom's parenting. From a distance, I know that you felt out of the loop and that you were out of the loop in so many respects. And I know that you were trying to understand your role as a parent, given the distance and the capacity that was available to you. But in the moment, it was a really oppressive environment for formative years. And I found myself really kind of dreading packing my suitcase on those weekends and really sort of exhaling in relief as I was repacking them again on my way to school on Monday. And I have to imagine you felt that sense that we were, at least I was, I won't speak for my sister, but I was holding my breath that entire experience that I had with you on those weekends. As I sort of started to come of age, I recognized a lot of similarities in my mom's genetic makeup with my own. Obviously, I was way more exposed to her and her family during those years, but all the same, I have this nature that is it's gentle, it's emotional, it's artistic. I'm a creator, I'm a creative. I'm an artist. We are on the other sides of the spectrums in so many ways in that regard. You were an athlete in school. You cooked steaks on the grill. You know, you were a man's man, right? You lifted weights. And yet there was through lines. My love of R&B, for example, I know that's from you. And I gave basketball a shot. I just am not that competitive in my nature, you know. And I remember a couple of times when I'd be playing and I'd make a shot and I could just feel the enthusiasm, you know, from the sidelines when you were at the games. And there would be many other times where I didn't make an impact in the game or I didn't even enter the game. And you'd tell me how I needed to be different. I needed to be more assertive. And as different as we are and were, especially in those years, I did feel this need to meet your expectations and get some approval. But I also understood pretty early on that you weren't able to bridge the gap between who I was becoming and who you were and how you saw things. So I had to develop some sort of an exoskeleton, an armor for the criticisms that you had for myself and for the family and just people at large. I think the greater our divide, especially as I left the home for college and we saw each other less and less, the more pointed your critiques on your environment and my environment and the world became. And as I transformed and grew into young adulthood, any interaction we ended up having, I found myself putting back on that costume and that kind of reverting to that mild, ineffectual, fearful child. As I left college and sort of set on my own and moved away, states away, I sort of used that experience as sort of a cautionary tale, as kind of a definition of how not to do things, you know, and your experience in your life kind of served me as a guide for what not to do, if that makes sense. I honestly think it's been a central conflict in my life that the relationship that I had with you and the fear that I've had in a lot of respects of life, namely becoming a father myself. Maybe one of the reasons this YouTube channel even exists is as a response to my experience as a son and how I would like to redefine that experience and reflect it in a positive way and pay it forward differently than was paid to me. But there is something completely unexpected about actually becoming a father, entering fatherhood, that really transformed the way that I see you and really surprised me with how I view myself and life in general. Bearing witness to motherhood from the very beginning of that experience and the process of having a baby all the way through to where I'm at now with a toddler, it has been the most transformative experience in my life. Being able to witness the mother and son relationship develop and not just receive it myself, but to get to witness it between two people who I love so deeply. It has been humbling and it has been really enlightening. I understand a bit of the powerlessness that you feel as a father when you witness that strong bond in front of you and you recognize that you can't have that same bond. And I would say for even the first 6 months or so of my son's life, I've kind of felt a little bit unnecessary, a little bit helpless, a little bit like I hadn't prepared properly for this. Like I didn't know if I was doing a good job and what I could do to be better. I found myself wondering if I would ever be able to form any sort of a bridge to my son that even compared in some small regard to that bridge that I could witness between his mama and him. And I grew a real appreciation for the circumstances that you must have found yourself in the distance, on top of the complexities of fatherhood and the distance that you had to deal with. I have so much more concern for the future than I did before becoming a father, so much more concern for the well-being of another person than I had ever had before becoming a father. I think there was a lot of egocentrism growing up, and I had a lot of resentment and I had a lot of disappointment and probably anger about kind of how I had viewed you and the life you'd lived and the effects that it had had on me and the things I had to deal with as a result. And so as I sat last night sort of contemplating your mortality and my mortality and just the life cycle of humanity, I tried to imagine what I might say to you if we actually had that last conversation that you mentioned. Dad, I wish I could look you in the eye and say that I don't blame you. I understand the circumstances that we faced growing up. I understand the difficulties you had processing your life, how to influence me, how to course correct things. I understand you had your own demons that you were battling along the way. I understand you didn't have the vocabulary to even say and verbalize what your problems were, given the culture and the family history that we sort of grew up in that Midwestern, silent, strong man, father type of environment. I want to say that even though there is a separation that we've had in our lives, that I do not feel separate from you. I want to say that I forgive you. I want to say that I love you. And so, son, if you're watching this, I want you to know that I've taken the lessons with me to heart that I've experienced and learned with my dad. And I'm going to do my absolute best for you in your life to be everything that you need. And I hope that this record will serve as a document that sort of helps me reaffirm that commitment in any space of time where I feel like I'm falling short. And to all of the sons and daughters out there who are watching this, if you have something that's left unsaid between you and your father, I would really encourage you not to wait for the right time to say it. The right time is now. all my love.